All right, this is our podcast on Frankenstein, and our topic, our modern topic that relates to the themes and Frankenstein and such, is AI and how AI could potentially become dangerous, and how AI is increasingly, as technology becomes more advanced, a bigger concern and challenge that humanity faces. And our first topic of discussion is going to be a new AI, an AI that we probably heard of recently called like Tay that Microsoft created. And this is like an example of how like she being the AI learned through kind of social media and the internet and stuff. And she started off as a quote human-loving robot who like loves humans, and like one of her tweets says humans are super cool, and then after 24 hours she had become like a full-on Nazi, and basically is just like said a bunch of racist stuff about like Donald Trump, Ted
what
Cruz,
she collected through seeing tweets on Twitter.
From like tweets, and you could interact with the AI, and that had become like a bit, and it's just like she went from humans are super cool to a full Nazi, and it kind of makes you concerned about the future of AI, and like how like it's just a result of what we put into it, and kind of how like
well, it kind of reminds me of like Frankenstein's monster. Even though humans don't directly interact it, that's what causes the hatred in a sense. Whereas the AI, it seems like it's learning from people.
Yeah, like how the monster, he didn't really learn from Frankenstein in a sense, but through his isolation from society and his creator, he had just learned just the harsh realities of the world before anything like humans do, like how he learned the isolation and the cold of the wilderness before like we learn a mother like picking us up or having friends and all that. He had learned what we would learn later on in life, how some people become lonely and isolated, and a lot of people go down a bad road. And
like that hatred in a sense.
Yeah, that hatred. It's really easy. That's what this AI picked up. The AI picked up hatred. And like
that's kind of the same with the monster, right?
Yeah, it is kind of the same with the monster. That he picked up hatred the same. And what's our next topic? Our next topic, the 3 laws of robotics. All right, so basically Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics were the first one: a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. And and a robot must obey orders given by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And the third one, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. All right.
That's kind of the responsibility that we have going forward, building all of our AI. We have to make sure, we're not going to get hurt by it and whatnot. That's kind of, I think, where Asimov is looking out for us. I think Frankenstein sort of did that as well. I think that's where a lot of his animosity comes from.
Yeah, like at the end, where he's like, what he did was messed up. He says, like, what I did was messed up, basically. And he should have done more for the creature. He should have been there for it in the sense in the beginning, even though he was scared. He should have nurtured it and given it like a proper beginning, like most humans have. But he didn't. But he says he doesn't regret it, or he doesn't regret making the second creature, because like
he killed the second creature. He didn't even create it.
I know, but still, like he didn't make it.
That's why he didn't want to make a second one, knowing that his dream of the first creature didn't come to line up with his desires, kind of like how the AIs might turn out. they may not turn out perfectly with how we desire them to be.
Yeah, they might like just gain up sentience. They could become super smart, like beyond our conception. And
he stopped making that new creature because he was afraid of what like Isamazov was. He was afraid that the AI might do something. So when Isamazov made his rules, Frankenstein, physically went out. He destroyed the creature's mate. He tried to repel the creature.
Yeah, like, what if the Microsoft Teen Girl Tay that they made had access to Homeland Security, had access to the CIA and a bunch of that stuff, and progressively got smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter and learned how to hack more and hack more. And then with its viewpoints that it had learned about, like, kind of idolizing Hitler and just very extremist ideals, it could have done a lot of harm more than good, rather than what we'd like. And what else? Like, so there's this book called I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and the basic premise of it is that there's this supercomputer that is, after a war, the Third World War, it's all hypothetical, but after the Third World War, it was like a war computer, and it took over everything, and it destroyed everything. It was post-apocalyptic, and there was just like 5 human beings left in the whole world, and it had trapped them in this little room it had created in the depths of its, I don't know, hardware, something, and it was like a super massive computer, and it just tortured them over and over and over because it had gained sentience and saw that humans were bad, and it just destroyed everything, and it really just, it hated them, it hated humanity a lot, and it tortured them forever.
Yeah. In this computer, it originally started out because the allied nations of the world, all the nations of the world, they realized that a human couldn't win a nuke war. So they decided, we'll build computers to run that nuke war for us, so it's the best possible chances. Well, that one computer took control of the Russian and Chinese computers. Yep. And as a result of that, AM was born. But AM quickly learned to hate humanity, partly because of its interaction with the few humans that worked with it. Yeah. It grew to hate them, and as such grew to have animosity towards people as a whole. And you think about it, it's like you can have a standard AI could learn that hate, and people can learn how to hack. Why would an AI not be able to learn how to hack?
And much faster too, and such as kind of the humans are Frankenstein in a sense because they're a victim of the AI's hatred and the monster's hatred towards him, and how it destroyed everything he loved, and how it subjected them to thousands of simulations and just environments where it was cold and unforgiving, and they would starve and they'd have to eat disgusting things, and eventually they would just look forward to trying to kill themselves. And one of them finds a broken piece of glass, and it was kind of hard to come by because he makes it so that they can't kill themselves, and he finds it and he kills all his friends, and it's basically he's doing them a favor. And before he can kill himself, the computer stops him, and he just becomes this he turns him into this gelatinous mass, so he can't run into anything, he can't kill himself or anything, and he just describes himself, and he's in absolute hell. And the last line in the book is, I have no mouth and I must scream. And that's just kind of that kind of captures Frankenstein's suffering throughout the whole thing.
Definitely the fear about it all.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing as well is you're talking about Tay, and we're talking about how, she learned to hate and whatnot. Well, that's because of the interaction that she had with people. And it's that was just from normal people interacting with her. What happens if ISIS ever decided to go online on a computer and start talking with that thing? What if someone from the U.S. decided to go join ISIS and started teaching that computer how to hack?
And the computer could easily, just as well as the book, the quote, "You are my creator, but I am your master." An AI could easily become the monster in that sense as well, and easily enslave humanity.
Yeah, definitely. Hitler needed to eat. Caesar needed to eat. Pol Pot needed to eat. Needed to sleep. The machine doesn't need to do that.
Trying to get rid of Tay, who would probably be living through the internet, would be nearly impossible. I mean, there's so many internet banks and
so
networks.
many things that could take over. So many like armed, just anything.
Steal
really.
launch codes.
Steal launch codes. Yeah, it could easily just destroy the whole world if it wanted to, and it could just do anything.
Like if you make an AI that learns, and then you give it access to the internet, and then you have someone who just downloads it in a sense. If they can get the source code or anything really, and you let this thing just gestate for a long time, soaking up all this knowledge and all this data. I mean, it could even go beyond the lifetime of humanity. It would be superior to us.
And that's why Victor kind of like killed or didn't even bother finishing the second monster, because he didn't want to take the risk of that thing maybe reproducing, having like a kid monster, and that thing grows up and starting a whole other race to where it would learn that hatred that the monster learned, and it would teach that and take it down to all its descendants and just keep going and going and going. And
he feared the negative what ifs that came with the creation of the monster. He did not want to be responsible also for man's destruction, because the creature was clearly much stronger than the average man, and he was just large and ugly. He was just a repulsive
it's kind of
creature.
like the physical embodiment of what an AI is, because even though it's not physical, it's very large and intimidating and very smart. And all right, so I think that wraps up our podcast, and bye.